call to order our Planning Commission meeting for November 12th, and we'll start by approving tonight's agenda and our minutes from October 1st.
All motion to approve.
Well, second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None? New business, ROSO discussion. Neva.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to put this before you as an opportunity for us to have a discussion, as intended, regarding the residential open space overlay district. And I'll maybe just go through the memo from the top, since this is the start of what might be a longer conversation. So, as you'll recall, the residential open space overlay district is a new zoning district that was created by the Cook County Board of Commissioners following recommendation by the Planning Commission back in May of this year. This is an overlay district, so where it would get implemented is through a rezone process. And that would kind of be the first step for people who want to move into this. We, being myself and the HRA director, did a series of community meetings back in September of this year to go throughout the county and talk about this new zone district throughout Cook County. And it was a really wonderful exercise. We had a lot of very good discussions with the public. One thing in considering those conversations was the general question of where will this happen? And that leads to the question of how are we going to rezone properties into the ROSO district. We don't often see a lot of rezones, maybe one or two come to this board a year on average. But if you look over the general rezone criteria for amendments to the zoning map, those questions aren't really very helpful if you think about evaluating a contentious rezone into the ROSO district. So I was considering it may be helpful for the Planning Commission and County Board of Commissioners to have specific criteria to review and evaluate a property when someone asks to get put into the ROSO district. What are the types of questions you would want to be thinking about? How do you make a fair and unbiased findings of fact for that type of decision? So that's kind of where this is going towards from a big picture point of view. So in this memo, I kind of started with that background about the purpose of the ROSO district, because I think keeping aligned with that purpose is kind of helping us think through what questions we should be asking. The zoning ordinance outlines the eligibility criteria. So the ROSO district is only even able to be considered eligible if it's meeting those criteria. So that's step one, is a property eligible? And then step two is kind of a suitability, is the best word I can think of. So it's one thing to be eligible, but it may not be suitable for that type of development depending on the location. So the eligibility criteria that's in the ordinance is within a half a mile of State Highway 61 or a county or a township road. The parcel is fully within the non-shoreland area, except for shoreland area of rivers, can be within the open space of the open space subdivision. And then a nuance about the North Shore Management Zone eligibility, and then the parcel must be zoned FAR2 or FAR3, and the parcel is not within the City of Grand Marais subdivision jurisdictional area. So those eligibility criteria, we have a map on the county website that kind of highlights properties that meet those queries, if you will. And so you can go on that map, it's kind of interactive. And then the next question is, are all these properties okay to be ROSO zoned? Probably not. There needs to be that next level of evaluation to see, is a property along County Road 7 as suitable as a property at the tip of the Arrowhead Trail for high density residential development? Gut instinct probably says tip of the Arrowhead Trail probably isn't the best place for really high density. Remember, we are allowing up to as small as a 1/4 acre lots, so really small, tightly dense residential housing. Typically you want those things closer to services. So this is where, and if you read the memo, there's a discussion point to kind of prompt the brainstorming session. And I want you guys to have time to think about this and consider it in whatever way you want to move forward with asking these questions. When is a ROSO district rezone appropriate? And how will the county determine whether a site is suitable for this ROSO district or not? That's kind of the key question to think about. I want you to picture yourselves being in this room with a room full of people, half for, half against a ROSO request in their neighborhood. How would you, the decision makers, think through what questions you want to be asking to make sound decisions for this? So the proposed language that's in this is truly a starting point. I put in kind of some like key points that I think the question should try to ask towards is like plan consistency, and this is kind of already a rezone criteria, like is this rezone aligned with county plans? Well, our land use guide plan doesn't actually mention the ROSO rezone because ROSO rezone didn't exist in 2016 when our land use guide plan was done. Whereas like the Schroeder sub-area plan will mention it. So those are things that we can refer to. The next is access. You know, you kind of look first blush at where a ROSO rezone is, and you know, we say a county road. Not all county roads are exactly the same and equal to each other. So maybe those types of considerations about that road access and consultation with the highway engineer can help weigh into that. We've got sensitive features, so kind of just looking, you know, if the whole property is wetlands, whole entire 30 acres is all wetlands. It's like, well, that probably isn't suitable. So there's some of this information that we would have already that could go into a suitability determination, I believe. And so those are, you know, just kind of some of the bullet points. And I want you to kind of keep in mind that when a rezone request comes to you, think about some of the rezones we've had within recent years, you don't have all the technical information you're going to have for a plat. So there isn't going to be a survey that shows the wetlands lineation and all of this technical information. That won't be available yet. The rezone is kind of that an early green light to a developer that says, okay, it's worthwhile now for you to go ahead and do the investment for the preliminary plat. So the rezone is a pretty substantial thing to keep in mind because it's telling the developer, okay, we think there's really good potential here. You know, you're definitely going to have to iron out the kinks to make sure this is really a good project, but it's worthwhile now for you to go ahead and do the investment to do the plat layout for the preliminary plat and the final plat. So that's kind of the starting point. I won't read through all the language. I believe you guys had time to go through and talk about that. But I also wanted you, and I also think items A through G seems like an awful lot of questions. So I am totally open to making this more concise, if that's helpful. I wanted to give you guys a broad range of things to think about in what you would want to do. And however way you want to move forward, whether that's like, let's schedule another work session in January. We can think about this some more after the holiday. There's really no rush to this exactly. It's just that this is getting into our quiet time. And also, there are people I've been talking to about this. And so the sooner we can kind of move forward, and if this is a route you want to move forward with, that is absolutely an option to also not do anything and just work with the existing rezone criteria too. So that's kind of what I have before you for this discussion item.
Open to comment?
Yeah.
I welcome this a lot. I think it was Mary Van Dorn, is that right? Came in and asked for a rezone, and the thing that I recall difficult for us as a planning commission in terms of recommending anything was we didn't have criteria like this. And then we were getting into the conversation of upon what basis do we start rezoning? How can we be fair to applicants when they're coming in for a rezoning request without a construct upon which to look at and say, how are we creating one, our findings of fact, as you mentioned earlier, and the consideration, public comment, and so forth. And it came across as we'd be in the circumstance of kind of going, well, I want to approve this one and that one doesn't feel right. That's not anything to go forward on. This helps us with having a construct and with the great public input. You know, I read through the documentation, I read the meeting minutes and so forth. I've also had sidebar conversations with several of the people who were in attendance at the meetings because I've run into them during the week and appreciated their contributions to the conversation as well, because I know Bruce Martinson, for one, is extremely knowledgeable about zoning and having been involved in hospitality business for a couple of decades around here. He's quite familiar with a lot of these things, a lot of these conversations, and has dug into it quite a bit. He's a former county commissioner as well. So I've had opportunity to look at those things at that level. So I did read through all the documentation. I had one minor question just for a point of clarity. At the bottom of page 9, you've got the FAR 2, FAR 3 examples of table. And we've got some total parcel acreage of 58 acres and 46, and they're kind of, why do we pick sort of strange numbers? Is it just to show the rounding example?
Yep, and that page 9, so that's that's what's actually in our subdivision ordinance now, so that's what was adopted.
Okay.
This is a table from the subdivision ordinance, and yeah, that was to show people, because very rarely do properties fall neatly as a whole number with 5 or 0. Quite often, there's a lot of decimals involved, so it's to point out just like how do we handle these odd ones, and yeah, when there's a question, we just round up for at least the ROSO. And also, just to clarify, this potential ordinance rezone language, this is only for the ROSO district. So someone who wants to rezone into the overlay district. This isn't intended for every zone district, because every zone, this wouldn't be compatible necessarily with other types of zone districts.
Did we ever come to any conclusion about the vacation rental? I know it's prohibited use, but I thought we started to discuss the length of time that would be considered. Is that something that's written somewhere?
So within the ROSO district, it's just prohibited. So, and that's why we have this extra complexity of the ROSO district being a zoning overlay district,
Yep.
was to really tie in the zoning aspect with the open space overlay district.
But how do you stop somebody from doing a month-to-month rental versus a vacation rental for 30 days?
So vacation rental kicks in for, is it 30 days or less?
Yes.
Yeah, so, if people wanted to do more
A
than
30-day vacation rental, that would be an acceptable thing then?
it wouldn't fall under the purview of the vacation rental.
Yeah, it's not
ordinance.
defined as a vacation rental if it's over that by both us or the Minnesota Department of Health.
Okay.
It's just a short-term rental.
What do we need to do to proceed? Do we,
I can take your direction from here. If you want to work on this language and think about this more over the next time period, if that's something you'd like to do, we can do that. If you like this language, that's on page 5 of the document, or page 13 of the packet, what we could do is we could move to like a public notice and have a public hearing and see what the community says. I just don't want to move to that point too fast if you feel like, this terminology isn't what you'd really want in the ordinance. So I currently don't have us planned to have a December meeting. I don't have any agenda items for you at that month. And I think since it's December, we're probably okay with that. If you want to wait till January to reconvene, I'll probably have more business for you then. And so we could either hold another work session if you want to take some time to think about this. You could revisit that rezone map, or if you want me to move forward and, publicly notice this and have a public hearing in January, and, after the public hearing, you could amend it and we could work through it some more. I just wanted to really give you, as much input as you want on the front end to see which direction you'd like to go with this.
I think it looks very good.
Oh,
I know. There's not anything that I would change, but I'm also not as knowledgeable as...
Nothing jumped off at me to change anything on it. And then it's also in light of the fact that reading through the minutes and some of the other things, the number of people who've worked on this and the amount of review that's gone through and approval by the Schroeder Township Council, I think, and I've read through everything you gave me. And like I say, there was the one question on the table was was the only thing that really came to mind, and that was more of a curiosity than an expectation. Just making sure I understood it correctly is where I'm going. So I'm not surprised that the language is pretty solid already. I didn't find why does this say and, it should say or, nothing like that came across.
Yeah, I think you did really good.
So I think
Amazingly, actually.
the public notice and a meeting in January seems appropriate to me to keep this moving forward.
Mhm.
And I assume some of this new language came based off of the meetings that you've already had.
Yep. Much of this framework came to mind through those community meetings.
Yeah.
So I really thank the residents who attended the Holbland, Colville, Schroeder, and then we had a meeting here. And so we did hold one up at the Gunflint too, but it was a really beautiful day, and it was like the week of grouse openers, so no one prioritized us over their mental health. So yeah, but, all the input through all that led to these types of questions, and the county attorney's office was helpful in providing some feedback, as well as the land use attorney that we work with, to ensure that we're on a good path forward, hopefully, for the community and thinking through some of this. So we can plan on that January meeting. I'll get it in the newspaper sooner than later so people can have time. I know it's the holiday season, so folks will feel busy.
Sounds good.
Thanks. Appreciate the discussion.
Do we need to make a
Yeah.
motion to, no? Okay.
I'll just move forward with drafting the language and putting it in the Cook County News Herald for legal notice. And go from there and let the townships and everyone else know. The next item I have for you is the Schroeder Township Sub-Area Plan, and I actually don't have a slide for it, Diana, so you can just take that down. Amy Brugge, with the Schroeder Township Clerk is here tonight also to help out. So this has been just a really, really wonderful planning effort in our community. As you'll recall, about this time last year, we did have a Schroeder resident come forward and want to do a rezone, and we kind of were challenged by it because it really didn't fall in line with our typical zoning patterns. And one thing we identified through that discussion is that the Schroeder sub-area plan was getting outdated and was due up for an update. So Schroeder Township diligently got put together, the land use committee, and we began meeting in January and met monthly or every other month pretty much throughout this year to go word by word through their 2016 plan. 2016, yeah. And it was a really incredible local community planning process. It was very enjoyable. We had some great discussions, some good challenges to think through, some visions. And so this really was a much more comprehensive update than sometimes what people do. Sometimes they'll just read it, stamp it, say it's updated, and call it good. They put a lot of very critical thought and good questions on the table. We also really worked on the maps. That was one pretty significant improvement, is a lot of mapping work. Our MIS department helped out with that a good amount, so I really want to express gratitude towards them for that. So hopefully what we'll use this document for is, as we have in the past, if there's a rezone or a conditional use permit or even a variance in Schroeder Township, this is a helpful document to go to and think about what Schroeder Township has envisioned for their future development and whether or not that request is aligned with the local values and priorities. And they also kind of organized Schroeder Township a little bit more geographically, so it's a little bit more geographically identified by some of the descriptions of the areas. And Amy can weigh in a little bit more too, but they did hold a listening session, kind of like a public hearing. Yeah, so I don't think they received any negative comments from anyone. So overall, this is recommending adoption of the sub-area plan. It's essentially an addendum to the Cook County Land Use Guide Plan. So we would still refer to that document, but I'm not aware of any conflict between the two when I reviewed it. And then this would go to the Cook County Board of Commissioners at their next action meeting for final adoption.
Do we then?
Public hearing tonight.
Public hearing.
Yep.
So we're open to
Should
the
have led with
public.
that. But yeah, it's an opportunity for the public to comment on it.
Anyone from the public wish to comment on the draft plan? All right, hearing none. Board?
I sat down and read this. A lot of what I was talking about was related to this one, and I had the two crossed over. Yeah, I do really appreciate the way Schroeder community came together and updated the plan, because it'd be quite a while before we got around to it had they not taken on so much of the work. And the thought process that goes into this and how it fits with the community there. And I'm pretty satisfied with it.
Items, I got a question for you, Neva, on items in here would take precedent to our current county zoning then in this area?
Well, it doesn't say anything, I think that's in conflict with our zoning. It's outlining
Well-
visions, so like the 2035 conditions kind of reference potential rezones. So it's more so guiding that development. So I think we talked a lot about the Sugarloaf Road as an area for potential rezones in the future, but it's kind of limited right now by the utility access. So it's kind of recognized in the plan, like if better utility service goes up the Sugarloaf Road, it may be well suited to be rezoned in the future. So it'd be more so guiding those rezones for us to refer to.
So is this specifically to rezones then? Not,
No, like, we referred to this document, the 2016 version, during a gravel pit application up the Kramer Road. So, reading what it says about gravel pits, this current plan kind of recognizes the community wanting a little bit more balance. Like, they don't want to be the gravel pit hub of the county. So it's wanting a little bit more of a balanced perspective, which is a different message than if this said, like, we want Kramer Road to just be gravel pits,
Right.
So it will weigh into like the conditional use permits. There might even be cases where someone asks for a variance that we can refer to this and see whether or not it's aligned with that. You would, essentially, to answer your question, we look at the Cook County Land Use Guide Plan and also this plan. This plan kind of feeds into that. You might have more.
Just a very quick comment, Mr. Chair, that the ordinance does take precedence over plans, we use the plans to guide us on how to develop or change the ordinances, but the ordinance takes precedence in terms of application over the plan. And that's why the plans can change more than the ordinance does.
and to be perfectly honest, I haven't read the whole thing with fine tooth comb. I'm just kind of skimming through it and seeing one that would be about kennels is kennels are allowed as a conditional use permit in FAR 2, and in this it's saying only in FAR 1. So that's prompting the question, and I don't, so that would be a conflict that our county zoning allows
Them in
kennels
two.
as a conditional use in FAR 2.
Well, it's permitted versus conditional. So I think they both might be in agreement. Kennels are permitted use
So
in
I'm asking
FAR
for the
1.
clarification, so.
Yeah, kennels are permitted use in FAR 1, but that's the only district they're permitted use. So I believe in this document, it's saying that they're conditional use in FAR 2, which would also be an accurate statement in the county zoning.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there, you mentioned, like I said, I apologize, I haven't read the whole
Mm-hmm.
document. Is there anything specific to gravel pits in here then, or is it, how, I mean,
Yeah,
I
there was-
apologize, I'm not,
Yep. They mentioned it specifically for sure on the Kramer Road. The upper,
So I saw it somewhere.
yeah, and I didn't bring a red line version, so I'm just only working
Page
off
5,
and I don't mean
Sugarloaf
to take
Road
extra
has,
time here, I'm just,
page 5, paragraph C, fourth bullet down. Sugarloaf Road is existing bioremediation site, significant wetland areas in close proximity to a large gravel pit.
Yep. And also, on the next page, Kramer Road also recognizes that there's current and historical uses of gravel pits, and then in the 2035 conditions,
Paragraph
what
E.
kind of like one of the more stronger gravel pit statements, I think, is on page 7 of the document, or 26 of the packet. It says, and this is 2035 conditions, so desired conditions for Kramer Road.
Is that
It says
the third?
gravel extraction projects are among several throughout Cook and Lake counties, and conditional use zoning approvals consider mixed residential uses within neighborhoods. Opportunities for gravel extraction across the county are explored to avoid over extraction in this area. So like I mentioned, there's a strong feeling, especially for folks who live up the Kramer Road, that there's a bit more of like a residential neighborhood up in there that's kind of mixed in with existing gravel pits. So they just want that respected, I think, in land use decisions.
Yeah, then in the last one,
yeah, thank you.
Charlie, in the last bullet too, it says the county, realizing the value of residential areas populated by local workers, encourages gravel mining in other places.
Yeah. So, are we ready to make a recommendation? Or more discussion?
I don't have anything to add. I mean, I feel if this is what they have spent all this time on, and
Yeah.
I feel that that we should pass it on.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. That was my question, is what supersedes what, but you answered that, so.
So this would be, we need to vote as a motion to recommend approval, just like any other planning commission item.
Adoption.
To adopt it.
Adoption, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'll motion to adopt it as written.
I would second that.
motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Yeah, it looks like a really good effort was put into this, and
Yeah, that's
really
amazing.
appreciate the people who did this.
That's a ton of work.
Good
Is
job,
this
Amy.
going to set a new precedence for other areas too?
So Lutzen and Tofty both have sub-area plans.
Okay.
And at any point, if those townships want to update those plans, well, I'm happy
Look at
to
that.
be along for the ride and helpful where wanted.
Nice.
Look for a motion to adjourn.
I would make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
I thought we were gonna be here all night.
January. No December meeting, so.
Okay.
Wanted to wait to find out if anything got tabled, because somebody got sick tonight or something, so, good job.
Yay.